Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to the Angel Rock on United Public Radio Network, otherwise known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network. You're listening to the Angel Rock. I am your host, Lorilei Potvin. We are broadcasting to you live out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and I actually live in Canada, but we have hosts from all over the world. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the show if you've never been here before, but first of all, if you have, welcome. I'm so glad that you're back. And if you haven't been here before, welcome. I hope you'll stick around. You'll share my show and the rest of the shows on the network. We've got something for everybody on UPRN. So, a little bit about the Angel Rock. I say I cover all aspects of the supernatural, the esoteric, power of the mind, power of positivity, as well as a bit of truth seeking thrown in there. So, and there's always a positive spin with the show, regardless of the topic we're talking about. And the guests that I have on are incredible. As you well know, if you've been here to the show before, I say that the type of guests that I like to have on my show, whether they're doing something professionally or as well as extracurricularly, they're making a positive change for humanity. And our guest is no different. But before I go any further, two things. First of all, I should introduce myself in case, like I said, you haven't been here. Second of all, if you are watching on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook page, I can't see your comments. So please feel free to hop on to it's UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube channel as well as Facebook page. We're also on we have three channels, but we're also on our second channel tonight, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, because we like to make you part of the conversation if you've got questions or comments, because we appreciate that you support our shows. So a little bit about myself. I'm Lorilei Potvin. I am a Canadian psychic medium. I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner. I'm a spiritual teacher and mentor, and I'm also a registered nurse. So first I'm going to read a little bit of our bio for our guest. I want to give a huge shout out to Gavin Lee Davies because he's amazing. He's been on the show before. I've been friends with him for quite a few years, and he always sends me incredible authors that are incredible guests, and this guest is one of his authors. So her name is, and I never asked you before, so I hope I say your last name correctly, Carmen Turner-Shott. Did I say Shott? Okay, good. So Carmen, I got to find your intro here. I thought I had it ready and then it moved on me.
No worries.
Hang on. Okay. Carmen Turner-Shott is a practicing licensed clinical social worker with a master's, and I'll have to ask her what an LISW is, something within social work. I know that.
Yes.
She's also an astrologer, writer, and teacher with a national and international clientele. She has been working as an astrological counselor with victims of trauma for over 25 years. We're going to get into that tonight. She completed her Master of Social Work at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri in 1999. Carmen has been researching the 8th and 12th astrological houses for the past 25 years. An 8th and 12th house person herself, she has personally experienced the energies and lessons of these two very spiritually transforming, and take these off, can't see any better, spiritually transforming houses. She has presented astrology workshops for the Association of Research and Enlightenment, or in brackets ARE, throughout the years, and teaches a variety of spiritual development classes. She is a published author and has written 5 books. I want to get into the title of it because I want to make sure I read it correctly, because you have many books, which I was doing my research on you a little bit. So the one that we are talking about tonight, but we're probably going to get into all of them. Thank you. The Mysteries of the 12th Astrological House, Fallen Angels. So welcome, Carmen. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, that's quite the I'm still here, just putting the computer down. There's that's quite the biography. Kind of sounds a little bit like mine after we've been doing this for quite a while. But you know what? I always start at the beginning because I wear many hats within the spirituality world, but that's one thing I've never really gotten into is astrology, and I've been trying to get better at it and understand it. But let's hear your story. How did you get into all of this?
Yes. So, well, it's kind of interesting
Mm-hmm.
how it started because it kind of has to do with some things you mentioned at the beginning about the show with, UFOs, orbs, and all that kind of thing. So,
Mm-hmm. Me too.
when I was little, I was
Mm-hmm.
always different
Mm-hmm.
and just very empathic, very sensitive. And I remember, I always had to have a night light on, my door open. I didn't like to be in the dark. I would dream
Mm-hmm.
vividly. I would sleepwalk. I would do
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff. And one night when I was 16 years old, I came home from a basketball game, and
You too. I
I
played basketball
yes,
too.
I was a point
Fiend.
guard, 3-point shooter. That was my
I
deal.
was under the net or center.
Nice, you were a post player. Yes, I
Yeah.
tossed the ball down there to you. Yes.
Yeah.
So, I loved it. It was my life was
Mm.
basketball. I mean,
Me
I
too.
I
Mm-hmm.
think part of well, I'm just gonna go with this thread, but part of why I think my intuitive abilities opened up so much was the focus of the concentration of shooting, constantly focusing on the ball going in the
Mm-hmm.
rim, and I really think that opened me up to, in 8th
Never
grade.
mind intuitively, right? Having to anticipate, especially as a guard, you set up the play. You've got to
Yes,
know intuitively who to pass to, you've got to anticipate. Could they be open based on what you've done with practice? I think we almost are telepathic when we're playing team sports, especially too.
it is, you're right, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it really opened me up, and so I started having these experiences I couldn't explain, and one night, I got back from the game, I went to bed, I woke up in the night, and there was a glowing ball of light in my doorway about the size of a softball, and it was
Window.
white, yellow, translucent, just kind of floating there, and I tried to yell, I tried to yell for my mother, I had no voice, it's like it took my voice, I was frozen.
Wow.
So I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing I had control of was my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, "Please don't have it come in my room, please don't have it come in my room," because at the time it was the unknown, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just now I hit myself, I wish I wouldn't went over to the thing, but I was afraid to get up and do anything, but I also couldn't do it because I was frozen, so I laid there and watched it, and it never came in my doorway because I had my mind. I could control my thoughts, and I couldn't do anything else, and I watched it, and it would go down the hall, come right back, and float in my doorway. And I
Wow.
start going to the restroom, it come right back, and I think I laid there for hours watching this thing. I mean, I couldn't do anything except watch it, and I finally after it's like it released me, and I finally yelled, "Mom," and I screamed for her and woke her up like I usually did, but typically she'd say, "It's just your imagination, go back to sleep," right? Well, this time she saw it, and I
Oh,
had a
your mom saw it too.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So, to this day, she will tell anyone that, yes, it's true. She
Mm-hmm.
saw it, and she said, trying to rationalize it, "Maybe someone's shining a flashlight in your windows. Maybe it's a lightning, but,
The battery is what it died. Believe me, it was there that long. Right?
I mean, it's just I think at the time, my dad and my brother were not home. They were
Mhm.
on a fishing trip, so it was just the 2 of
Right.
and she told me to go back to sleep, and don't worry about it. And I laid there watching it, and I think I passed out, but no one went over to it. Woke up the next morning, my mother, we were in the kitchen, and she said that was definitely not a lightning bug. And she said, "I don't know what it was." And I said, "Well, Mom, I think it was an angel or a spirit or whatever."
Mhm.
And that next year, so after that happened, that next year, I went to college, and I went into a little mystical bookstore, and I started researching about religion,
Mhm.
philosophy, astrology, UFOs, all this stuff. I bought my first astrology book, and I was hooked because it really explained my personality, which is Virgo, and explained my sun and Venus were in the 12th house. And I started looking up, learning how to do my chart, and it explained why I had unexplained psychic or spiritual experiences because of my chart. And I said, "There's something to this. No one could ever explain to me why things happen to me." And these intuitions I would have, or I would dream something and it would happen. No one ever raised me this way. I was so that is what started my love of astrology and just researching and bringing it into a counseling practice, because I became a social worker a licensed social worker, which is a counselor. I used to work with runaway teens and children, adopted children, and for with victims of trauma, sexual assault, domestic violence, things like that. So I've always been a social worker, but I've always been an astrologer on my part-time hobby job, and doing consults for people. I think I started when I was 19. I started doing free consults
Wow.
and I practiced. It really was because I loved it, and I knew there was something very deep and powerful about it, and it was so accurate. So I would do people's charts, and they would be like, "How did you know that?" Because it's your chart, it's energy, it's the map of your soul, it's your destiny, and that's what I call the chart. It's a map of the soul. And to do your birth chart, you have to have your date and year of birth. Most people know their sun sign, which is the basics, but to really get the whole picture, you have to know what time you're born and AM or PM, pretty accurate time to get an accurate chart. And then city, state, country, place to do a chart. And you can get a free chart on astro.com, and for listeners out there, and you can see where the symbols are and everything. So sometimes people shy away from astrology because it is a lot of symbols. But once you know the symbols, and you can even order a basic interpretation chart, and it'll have the symbols, so you can look, okay, the sun is that little thingy, it's in the first house. You can start learning on your own. And my goal as a writer is to make astrology basic and on a practical level, where anyone that doesn't know about it can pick up my book and understand it and not get afraid of it, because some astrology books out are very complex,
Yes.
mathematical. That's not how I write. I
Mhm.
got another book out there right now with Llewellyn Worldwide. It's Sun Signs, Houses, and Healing. It came out in May, and it's a basic book about what is your sun sign strengths, weaknesses, how do you heal, how do you do a birth chart, what are the symbols, all of the basics in that book. And then this book is more of my personal experiences and from all the clients from all over the world that have shared their 12th house experiences with me. And when I call a 12th house person in the book is anyone that has any planets in the 12th house of their astrological chart, and
Mhm.
anyone with a lot of Pisces energy, right? Pisces sun, Pisces rising, Pisces moon, anyone with a strong Neptune, because Neptune rules the sign Pisces, and Neptune rules the 12th house in our astrological chart. So this book is dedicated to people with 12th house planets. And I want to put it out there because I get criticism sometimes from one or two people that there's more to your chart than just one house. Yes, I know that. I know that, but my research is about this house specifically and the eighth house. And I collected client stories that all are similar. And guess what? They all have unexplained spiritual gifts.
Wow. Well, okay,
Mhm.
so we've got no, is it Nomix, I think, with a question mark. Thanks for being here. Good question. Is it pagan astrology? What's your thoughts on that? Where do you think it originates from? What,
Oh,
if any, roots in it, do you
oh
think?
yes, astrology goes back to the beginning of ancient times,
Hmm.
Ireland, Celtic, even in Israel.
All
The
over the world, isn't it?
it's
Like, because they
world.
use a
Yeah,
lot of the same, they might call it something different,
yeah,
different symbols, but the
yeah.
concept, right, has been
Yeah.
used for centuries.
Yes, it's very much, even, I always look at, the basic, Judaism, Christianity,
Hmm.
the tree of life and Kabbalah and all that.
Yeah.
It's all a part of it. And in ancient times, the signs were on the money. In Israel, they were on the floor of the synagogues. They're in churches all over the world. The 12
Hmm.
signs of the zodiac, the fixed signs of the zodiac in the book of Revelation are in churches.
Hmm.
I mean, this is like astrotheology, right? It's everywhere in the Catholic Church, and I have some articles I wrote about that. That's a whole nother topic we could spend an hour.
You're probably going to have to come back because I
Yeah.
do love symbols and
Yes.
codes and things like that.
Yes.
And even with Reiki, right, we have, Reiki symbols, but then you
Yeah.
run into, I don't do traditional Reiki, I do crystal
Okay.
Reiki, which is a
Oh,
little different,
nice.
working with the chakras and
Yeah.
things and specific symbols that go with the crystals I use intuitively to balance the chakras. Then we seal the aura. I need to make a video. I keep saying this because
Yes.
people have no idea what it is. And then once they hear about it, if I talk about it, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to know more.
Well, you need to. I believe in this. I'm a Reiki master. I don't practice it on others anymore. I used to. That's a whole nother story, but I do it on my family, myself, my animals. But I did a crystal Reiki class once, and it was so powerful.
It is.
They put a stone. I will never forget. They put a stone on this one lady, and it brought up a traumatic memory that she didn't even know was there, and she had a massive breakthrough. I mean, cried. Everybody was a little bit worried about her physically. I saw it work. I can't explain it, but I have seen crystal healing work, and she felt like a weight was lifted off her shoulders after she discussed what she saw. She had like a memory.
Well, what happens specifically when someone comes to see me very quickly, since we went down, with my show, I didn't tell you this before, but I never plan before I start. I always say, okay, Spirit, where are we going with the conversation? And it's just like having a chat, and we just have someone watching our conversation. What was it? Oh, with crystal Reiki. I was drawn to it and crystals, and had a very strange experience myself, realizing my gifts. Came from a house extremely haunted. My partner, husband, was thrown 15 feet. This entity introduced itself, bites, scratches, you name it. And we've actually shared our show on Paranormal Survivor, the Travel Channel show, on season 4, episode 9. And I'm reading 3 books. I'm trying to get these done. I finally this weekend just found some technology where I can dictate it and it will type for me. So anyways, crystal Reiki. What's so cool about it is I kind of run it, and I work when I was able to work before I hurt my back, quite closely with social workers, actually a lot, with being a community visiting nurse. And, it's interesting, right? So when we met somebody, as I'm sure you do, we do a bit of a history, or, to find out why the person's there, to get to know them. Same thing with crystal Reiki. So what I find is when someone is coming to see me for a particular issue, what happens when we check their chakras initially, it's usually shown in the chakra, the affected area, why they're specifically coming, usually the one above and the one below, or I should say and. It always shows. Like, I remember I did this for a friend of mine who's having a really hard time, and I said, well, you want to try some crystal Reiki? He said, sure. So he wasn't in front of me, he was on video. And after I'd done the whole treatment, and then I had grounded his energy, I end up using a selenite wand, and I check the aura. And after I do all that, make sure everything's perfect, I ground again, right? But anyways, as I'm checking his aura, I get to his left ankle, and I call it my gingerbread drawing, because that's what I use in front of me. And I said, are you having pain in your left ankle? And I can't say what he said, it's not radio friendly, but there was an expletive, and he said, how did you know that? He goes, I had a massive motorcycle accident 25 years ago. My ankle was destroyed. It was completely reconstructed. He goes, nobody knows that. I said, I wasn't using psychic abilities, your body told me.
Well, you know what, you're exactly right. There's with working with trauma and people that have trauma with energy healing too, that those, the sacral chakra, the sexual organs, that's where you hold a lot of trauma, or with your voice, your throat, if you don't speak up for yourself, or, that's where you'll have a problem, or health problems. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score by a famous psychologist. I took all his classes, and it is so amazing. Sorry, my eyes are watering from allergies. But no, that book is so amazing, because our body, secondary trauma, being a nurse, being a social worker, you hear people's problems, you deal with people that are sick, that are injured, and being a healer, an energy healer, you're doing that. And we have to be careful about taking on other people's
absolutely
problems. Probably in house, because that's what we do.
We're going to get into that. I was just going to share, though, you're so right about that. But the one book I do want to share as well for people, because I didn't say it just gets too long. I'm also a medical intuitive. But the book that I use all the time is by Ina Segal, The Secret Language of Your Body, because it's almost set up clinically. But when I send the pages to somebody, because it goes by every body system, practically every disease process, it breaks down what could be causing it within your life, like trauma.
Yes.
There could be a whole bunch of things you hadn't
Yes.
thought of. And then it gives you ways to release it, working with color,
That's
working
great.
with the power of the mind and
Right.
visualization. It's an incredible, incredible book. So I mention it all the time, and it's like one of my Bibles. I have a couple other ones I use, but
Yeah.
that's my favorite. So let's talk about this, about your book, because okay, so this is I'm aware there's it's 12 houses within the astrological, is it,
Yes.
realm, I'll say. Now, I don't, where I get lost, and I'm being honest, and I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest, maybe it's just me, but I find I run into a lot of people within the spirituality healing field that either you just are so drawn to astrology, or
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, I know a little bit about it, but it's not quite my thing. And
True.
those are the people I usually meet. Like, we don't know a lot about it. Now,
Sure.
I work with one lady, they're two of them from the UK. Love them dearly. They're like sisters. One of them is very well versed in astrology, but the two of us aren't. So we always have to say, okay, like, put that into layman's language for us,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's so special then about the 8th house and the 12th house? Because it sort of sounds exclusive in a way that the 12th
Yeah.
house only pertains to people that have some birth information, soul information within the 12th house. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Yeah. So how it works is when you're born, when you're on Earth and you look up at the sky. I'll try to make it real basic. When you look up at the sky when you're born, in the time, place, date, year, all the planets will be in a certain star constellation
Alignment.
in the sky.
Mhm.
So there's 12 star constellations, which we call signs. And so, we'll go over, I'll tell you what the signs are. There's the fire signs, just like in nature, we have the four elements: fire, air, earth, and water. So the fire signs are Aries, Sag, and Leo.
I knew that because I'm Leo.
Nice, nice. Well, you're meant to be on camera. You're doing what you're
Yeah,
meant to do
okay.
for people. Entertainment.
Hmm.
Yes. Comedian. You say you're a comedian and a radio show, all this stuff.
Hmm.
And then air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius.
Hmm.
Earth signs are Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus. And the water signs are Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. So everyone pretty much knows their sun sign because it's based on your month and your month and date. So when you're born, even twins can have a different birth chart, a natal chart.
Hmm.
So the picture in the sky, if you look at the sky when you're born, it's like we take a picture of that and put it on a piece of paper.
I love it.
And when we do that, when you're looking at the sky, astrologers, um, mathematically, we calculate 12 areas or sections of the sky. And those are the houses. So when you
You have
put
made
that,
this so I'm sorry. I had to stop you because
I
you're the
hope it,
first person that made this so understandable. And I'm sorry, Dave, if you're listening. He does astrology, but he does it mathematically. That's so easy. I'm getting goosebumps. That's perfect. Thank you. Keep going because I understand it now.
good, good, good.
Hmm.
So you take that picture in the sky, boom, we put it on a piece of paper.
Hmm.
And what it looks like is, I probably should, it's a wheel.
Hmm.
And on that wheel, it'll be numbered 1 through 12, and it goes counterclockwise. No, it goes clockwise. No, counterclockwise. So you start the 12th house is also starts what we call the ascendant or rising. So when the sun is coming up in the morning, that's whatever sign is there, that is typically your rising sign, depending on your birth date, year, place, and everything.
Oh, okay. That makes, I
Yeah,
wish somebody would have explained. Like, this is what we need to
I'm trying to make
understand
it basic,
astrology.
very
Yes.
basic. I don't want it complex.
Hmm.
I'm about basic, teaching this on a basic level so anyone will be interested. That's my goal. That's my whole goal, writing books and teaching this stuff. And so the first house is the house of body and physical appearance.
Okay.
And some people might have planets there, depending on what time you're born. Usually, if you're born, in the United States, if you're born early in the morning, like between 7:30 and 9, you got the sun is in the 12th house. I was born at 7:35, so the sun was coming up. The sun was rising. I have the sun in the 12th. If I would have been born a little later in the morning, it probably would have moved into the first house. So your time matters. That's why twins, the moon sign
Yeah.
when you're born, it changes signs every 2 to 3 days.
Hmm.
So it can be right on the cusp. Your moon sign might be moving, from Virgo into from Leo to Virgo. It could be right on the cusp. So the time really does matter because it can change some of those planets and houses. So when you're born, all of those planets are going to be in a certain house, in a certain sign in that
Okay.
chart. And by knowing that wheel, you can start analyzing it. So first house is body, physical appearance. Very strong house. It's ruled by Aries. Guess what? Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. That's why Aries rules house 1.
Okay.
So remember, if you just go down the row in the order of the months of the signs,
Okay.
that's how we get the information about each of the 12 houses.
I got you now. Okay.
So the second house is ruled by, guess what's the sign after Aries? Taurus. The second house is ruled by Taurus, which is money, finance, security, what you value, where you feel safe, secure, all that stuff. The third house is ruled by Gemini, the next sign. It's the third house. Communication, journalism, writing, speaking.
I live with a Gemini. It's like living with two people. And I was warned that before I went out with him. And I thought, I try not to make my mind up about anything anybody tells me until I experience it myself. And then I make it up. This person was so right.
Gemini's the twin. You have two different personalities to them. A good one and an evil one, or a yin and yang, a very social one and maybe an antisocial side.
Yes.
So they are the twins of the zodiac. So and they rule the third house. So they love to communicate, learn. They're intelligent. They're witty, sarcastic. They like to be moving.
They can sell ice to Eskimos.
They're very good for those people because they're ruled by Mercury is their planet. So they're excellent communicators. And they can really very friendly and connect with people easily. That's Gemini.
Yep.
They're adaptable. They're restless, adaptable. They're chameleons. And chameleons. They can morph with you and become like whoever they're around. That's what their talent. And then the fourth house is ruled by Cancer, which is the sign of the mother. So the fourth house is all about your home and family, your childhood, your roots, the home you grew up in, the home you have when you're older. So, like, for instance, my mom, she has the sun in the fourth house. She's never left her hometown. She's very close with her parents and always took care of them. That shows in her life, in her chart, when I look at her chart, right? So you can see different reasons of why your life is the way it is when you start knowing your chart. The fifth house is the house of Leo. Leo rules the fifth. It's the fifth sign of the zodiac. So it's children, entertainment, play, pleasure, self-expression, art, music, talents, love affairs, anything that's fun and pleasurable is fifth house, and anything with children. And then the sixth house
love kids. I would have had 20 if I could have.
It's because you're Leo. Leos draw children because you're a child at heart.
And animals, children, generous. Animals, strangers in a store just come tell you your whole. That's part of being an empath, I know as well. But just come right up and tell you.
Since you're an empath and people come up and tell you their problems, I guarantee you have planets in the 12th, 8th house. I'll tell you why.
I can't wait.
So sixth house is health. Diet, routine, co-workers, it's where we like to have structure, but it can show whatever sign is on the sixth house cusp, and you may not have planets in the sixth house. It doesn't matter. It's okay. If you don't have planets in a certain house, it's not a bad thing. It just means you don't have karma and learning in that area of life. But the sixth house, whatever signs on that cusp will show what kind of health issues you might have. Your sun sign and your polar opposite sign will show what kind of health issues you have. And we can talk about that too, but there's so much. But seventh
You're making this so understandable. Like, now I want to learn about astrology. I swear to God, now I want to learn.
Thank you. That's my goal. That's why I'm here. That's my mission. My North Node, which is your soul mission this lifetime in your chart. It looks like a little headphones or little horseshoe. Yeah. It's where you're meant to focus this lifetime and master. And mine is in the third house, which is everything basic math, basic knowledge, teaching people things on a practical, basic level, talking to people, communication. That's my goal, right?
I think you're succeeding because I'm not saying this because you're my guest on here. I'm saying this truthfully. Now it's like, oh my gosh, I want to learn all about this. Like, and my sign for truth is goosebumps. I'm starting to get goosebumps. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. This is awesome. Seventh house is ruled by Libra. They're the seventh sign. Libra is all about marriage, partnership, and
Okay.
relationships. They rule the seventh house, which is the house of partnership. So when you look at we call it the descendant, is the sign on the seventh house cusp. The ascendant or rising is the sign on the 12th first house cusp. Okay.
Okay.
In your descendant, whatever sign is there will show what kind of people that you're going to draw in intimate relationships and partnership. And
Oh,
it's going to
wow.
show how you are when you're in a marriage or in a relationship, how you
Okay.
are. And so there's so much more to your personality than just your sun sign and your moon sign. There's so much more. And then now we're going to get into the eighth house.
Right.
Eighth,
Okay.
my specialty is this is my favorite, one of my favorite. 12th is my favorite, eighth is my second. The water houses traditionally in astrology, all three, the 12th, 8th, and 4th, are ruled by water signs, the three water signs. So fourth house is also important. I haven't seen and done as much research with that house because I typically find that people with 12th house planets and 8th house planets are the ones that have traumatic experiences. They lose loved ones at a young age. They go through death and loss. They have these mystical experiences they can't explain. They have that a lot more than fourth house people, in my opinion. Fourth house is still a water house. It's very intuitive, makes you very
Mhm.
intuitive as well. But my research is focused on the 12th and 8th.
I will be shocked if you plotted me that I don't have like the 8th and 12th, because experiences from the age of 4,
Yes,
some trauma. I choose not to, and it's
yes,
not a judgment on anybody else. I
sure.
don't look at it as victimhood or what I've
Yes,
gone through, because I really believe that we should embrace it all.
yes.
My partner Dell, who I should mention has a show on here, guys,
Oh, nice.
UPRN, the Delicious Recipe, Thursday nights,
Oh,
not a
nice.
cooking show. But he'll always say, well, if I could go back and talk to myself in high school. And I always say to him, I understand what you're saying, but if you could, you wouldn't be living the life that you're living right now. You got to embrace it all, because it makes you who
Yes.
you are in this moment.
You're so right. I
Mhm.
totally agree with you. And that's why, how I started research in the eighth house specifically too. I have a book out there called The Mysteries of the Eighth House,
Mhm.
Eighth Astrologer. I self-published it. It's been out there since 2010, but it has
Okay.
client stories based on an article I wrote, and it was really based on my own experience because I have the moon, Jupiter, and Chiron in my eighth house in my birth chart, all in Aries.
That word's coming up a lot for me personally, by the way, especially with the 3 ladies I work with. So I'm going to have to ask you a little bit more about that too.
Yes. Yeah.
Chiron.
Chiron, yes, it's the wounded healer. I'll tell you about
Okay.
it. So eighth house is the house of death, loss, rebirth, transformation, mystical, deep transformation, psychological,
Mhm.
change. It's a very powerful house. When people have planets there, they have the death of someone close to them at a young age. It can be a parent, it could be a friend, it can be a relative, a sister, brother. I almost always see this.
What about a
Um,
near death? Could that fall within it too, like a near
they
death
also
experience?
they also have near death experiences. I've had several people
Okay.
open up to me for my own life, how this impacted me having eighth house planets. When I first started, really, another reason I started getting into astrology was that it validated my mystical orb experience, but also my eighth house. When I was 16, I've lost a lot of people in my life through gun
I'm
violence.
sorry.
Yeah, when I was 16, my good friend was accidentally shot and killed. And
Oh.
that was the first time I've ever known anyone that died. So, 16 doesn't seem that young, but it changed my life. So losing her and just going through that, such a tragic way to die. And then years late throughout my life, I have another friend that was shot at a community center just 2 years ago
Oh.
here in St. Louis. I went to college with her and she died instantly. I've had all of these really strange, tragic things that happen, which it's part of my chart. Like you said, I've embraced this. It's made me who I am today, and it's made me strong, and it's made
Mhm.
me understand what it's like to lose someone and to go through trauma of losing someone, and I can help other people, and that's what I try to do. So, like you said, I would be in the grocery store, and people would come up to me and tell me my husband died,
Mhm.
my dad died, and I would just listen.
Mhm.
The boys would come up to me with their stories of loss, and it was like I had a sign on my back that said, "Come tell
Yeah.
me." And it
Yeah.
was, and
And
same
then they stop halfway through and go, I have no idea why I'm telling you this. I don't even know you, but I feel
that's
so comfortable telling you.
that's what they'll say, and I got to know myself through astrology, and I got
Mhm.
to know to tell people at work or people that were around me, they would want to share really personal things and be vulnerable with me. And I would say, listen, don't tell me unless you're absolutely sure you want me to know, because what would happen is people would push me away. People would open up
Oh,
to their feel, right? And then they would feel uncomfortable around me because I know their deep, dark secrets.
I wonder if that's why intuitively I always say this, and I always said it came from being a nurse, and the same issue with the social worker, that I take confidentiality to the utmost degree.
Yes,
So unless I have somebody's permission, I don't
yes,
care if, like I said, the two ladies I work with, I know they don't care if I
sure.
mention their names. I just don't. I hold, from for those of us that are older, from Seinfeld, we used to say
Yeah,
it's in the vault. It's in
yeah,
the vault. And
oh, yeah,
whereas you say you like now, you have to tell people, don't tell me unless you really want to tell
yeah,
me. And
yeah,
like, I'm just hearing you. I'm listening. There's no judgment. That's
yeah.
another thing I always say. It's not my job to judge.
Yes.
Hmm.
It's just like, eighth house people typically go into social work psychology, just like 12th house people. I call them eighth and 12th house people because they go through their own experiences and they're able to put themselves in other people's shoes
Yes.
because they have lived through, very tragic experiences of those around them. Maybe not anything that happened to them directly, but sometimes it also happens to them directly where their trust was betrayed, or they had heartbreak from a
Hmm.
relationship, or someone maybe abused them when they were young, or
Hmm.
older, or they were a victim of violence or crime. There's all these different things that can happen. And when I started collecting stories and research, and that's how that book came, and that's how my 12th house came. I created a 8th house and 12th house
Love
Facebook
it.
astrology group, so people from all over the world are in my groups since 2012. When Facebook became big, I started those two groups, and I've just always, those are my babies, those two groups, and I'm the
Hmm.
admin. I just collect stories and people's experiences, and I realized there's something to this, and my goal is to help them. So I did some Facebook, YouTube videos about 8th and 12th house planets, and trying to share my own story. I'm usually pretty private about things I've gone through, but now with
Hmm.
these, I'm talking about it on the radio, so I'm
Hmm.
out there, talking about some of the things that have happened to me directly. And so the eighth house it's not a bad house. It is the house of change, and they're reborn throughout their lives, and they feel like they're a phoenix. I call them phoenixes, and I call the 12th house people angels. So eighth
Hmm.
house rise from the ashes, a whole new person, stronger and more resilient. Like,
Hmm.
so the things we go through as eighth and 12th house people make us who we are today, and it helps us truly help other people, which would
You know what it is too, though, and I remember I was on a panel and somebody had lost their mother recently, and they were very, very angry. And I've worked a lot in palliative care. I always say I've been so deeply blessed to be there hundreds of times at the beginning of life for being a NICU nurse.
yeah,
And then out in the community, I did a lot more, but my real affinity was towards palliative care. Being there, I just felt so deeply grateful and again honored
yeah.
that a family would ask me to be present while their loved one is transitioning, as I call it, back home,
Wow, that's
right?
amazing.
And you know what? You can feel it, you can see it. I talk a lot about grief because if you've never experienced it,
Yes.
those are the people that will say, it's been a year, it's been 2 years, aren't
Mm,
you going to get over it? Never realizing that I really feel that with grief, it just creates this. Well, it was actually a great analogy I had seen on a series about death and dying and normalizing it out from over in the
yeah.
UK. And it was a bunch of squiggly little black lines, and it was this big ball in somebody's heart. And then as time
Mhm.
happened and more new normal grew around it, the
Yeah,
ball never got smaller. We just started adding more
right.
of a new normal to it, right?
That's
Hmm.
right. It's like, Kubler-Ross talks about the
Yeah,
stages of grief and death and
I
dying.
should be of loss, the five
Yeah,
stages of
loss.
loss. Hmm.
Yeah, and those 5 stages, everyone doesn't have to go through them in order.
No.
Some people go right to anger, or some people stay in bargaining where they don't believe that it happened. They just can't. It's shock.
Or denial. Hmm.
Denial, yeah,
Denial. Hmm.
and it's okay to go through those different phases and stages at different times, and even years later, 8th house people will tell me, I just did a video about it, a song will bring a memory up. of something and they'll start crying and it's like, I thought I was over this. I thought I healed it. That's what healing is. Healing is a continual thing. You don't just heal and get over something. It's always a part of your body. It's always a part of you and your soul. So it doesn't mean that you're not healed. It's okay to still feel emotional about grief and the things that have happened to you, but you have to be, you really have to heal yourself to help others. I say you can't. I try to take my own advice. You can't help other people if your cup is empty. You need
True.
to get
you have to fill your own cup first. Yeah.
So I talk a lot about self-care in my sun signs book and in this book with 8th and 12th houses as well, because you got to take care of yourself, because 8th and 12th house people, their boundaries are wide open. They need to learn boundaries, and they need to learn not to take on other people's pain, because they just absorb other people's problems and they feel people's pain, and it becomes part of them. And so that's why they need time alone. They need solitude. They need time to withdraw from the world and to recover so they can go back out and be a service. So that's really the 8th house. And then I'll finish. The 9th house is Sagittarius. It's all about travel and foreign culture, foreign religion, philosophy, all those things go, higher education. 10th house is your career. We call that the midheaven, the 10th house. And it's your career, the public, and seeing what's going on there will really show what kind of career is best for you. Maybe some challenges or strengths you have in the career house. Then the 11th house is groups, friendship. It's ruled by Aquarius, so humanitarian efforts. And then the 12th house, the final house, is ruled by Pisces, and it is all about oneness with God. It's about serving others. It's about escapism. It's about addiction. It's about loneliness. It's all of the intuition, psychic experiences, all of the artistic abilities, creativity. There's very positive things. It's also the house of asylums, of monasteries. So a lot of people with 12th house planets want to become a nun or a priest or a rabbi. I was not raised Catholic, but I almost became a nun. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And I can't even make this up. And I always wondered, I was just always there. Like, I love to be alone. I love my alone time. But I remember when I was having all these strange experiences right after this glowing ball, I was actually really wasn't raised to believe a certain way. My parents are pretty, we didn't really go to church as a family, but I would go with my friends. And I typically went to Lutheran churches or Baptist churches growing up, and it was just, going with my friends. But when I got older, I went to Catholic college, and I was really drawn to the Catholic religion. And I started feeling like I want to be a nun. I have so many stories about that, but I realized that was from my past. I'm not meant to
I was going to add that. I know I've had a past life. Yeah. It's come up many times in different situations where I was a nun.
Yeah. I think I definitely know I was. And I love like Catholic icons and religious art. Like I'm like, ever since I was little, I collected angels. I loved angels.
Oh, I do too. That's, why my show is called The Angel Rock.
I know. I love it.
Okay. Because I took a couple. Sorry?
Tell me why. Why is it Angel Rock?
Okay, because I took a couple spiritual business courses.
Nice.
And it had a different name. It had, I think it was Angel something 111. And the person that was teaching this, and it really resonated with me, was in order to start building a successful business, you really need to embody who you are with the name. Yeah. I love angels, unicorns, fairies, you name it, but I've always collected angels. I actually became an certified angel card reader years ago. I have a story. I won't get into it tonight, but it's what a tattoo and 8 tattoos and angel cards have to do with each other. And so I picked angel, and then rock. I love crystals. I'm not a crystal guru, but I do love them and fairly knowledgeable. But also I love rock music. Usually I wear rock t-shirts, like rock bands, and it's just who I am. That's why it's called the Angel Rock.
That is awesome. So, hey, are there any questions? Do they want me to answer? So you have some questions from...
We've got a few here. Let's go back a bit. So hopefully you're hanging in there, guys. And girls, I should say, because they're the names are pretty generic. So Nomics is adding way back. They said, mine is pure social anxiety. I guess they're talking about when we were getting into the different houses, and thinking everyone around me is trying to get me, to set me up, out to get me in. I got to put my glasses on. Sorry. Can't read the small print. Can you see it?
Nomics, what's your What's your sign? Do you have some?
They've got it down below. So they said out to get me in an ill way for people listening or on the replay. What can I do for that? Nomics added air 100%. Teflon, Danny, welcome. That's a heavy diagnosis. I believe they were commenting on Nomics' question. So Nomics says they're Gemini.
Okay. Yeah, Gemini, I'll be honest, Gemini, I know a lot of Geminis.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Gemini is you need to learn how to ground yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You got so much air, and you got to learn to ground yourself to the earth. And there's this it's called the tree meditation. I recommend that.
I talk about it all the time, grounding. I have a video with the 2 videos I share the most on YouTube.
Good.
How to create a love shield rather than
Yes.
coming from a place of fear, especially being empathic, and
Yes.
how to ground and grid yourself. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because Gemini, because you're ruled by Mercury, you're a mental energy, but you're also a physical sign. You're restless. You're physically always moving on the go. You get bored easy. You like mental stimulation. You need a challenge mentally. And sometimes, people that can't keep up or communicate with you on your level, you can feel very lonely and alone. So you need stimulation. You need people around you that are like-minded, that are interested in the same things as you. But the biggest thing is you need to learn to ground yourself, because when you start getting restless, you get anxiety. That's like Virgo. Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by the same planet, Mercury. And we go right to analyzing things and obsession and overthinking. Okay, that's a big thing with Gemini and Virgo. So we need to ground our energy into our body, our physical body, and get out of our mind. Get out of your mind. And so just sitting and breathing, you can watch her videos. She has some videos on grounding. Just ground your energy.
Or trees, like you said, getting out in
It's like a tree,
nature.
like you're go out in nature and sit on the ground under a tree,
Shoes and
barefoot,
socks off. They
yes,
made this big documentary a couple
yes,
years ago. Like, it was this brand new, incredible healing technique, earthing. Earthing has been around for
yeah. It's the
centuries.
Native American, yeah,
How I explain grounding is basically like the relationship we have with trees, right? With like the leaves, photosynthesis. They
yes,
take in our carbon dioxide, what we breathe out. They
yes,
take it back in, they alchemize it, if you will, back into oxygen that we can use. Because I
yes,
believe everything on this planet requires balance. That's why we have so much duality, right? Almost everything is
exactly,
duality. So with
exactly.
grounding, and you can visualize it, you can listen to a meditation. There are all different kinds of ways. I have a bunch of articles on it. If you want, feel
Yeah,
free to contact me at the end of the show. But what I will say, I believe I have a guided video or guided meditation I do in the grounding and gridding video. But basically, I get people to go to a place of, if you're able to visualize, I always
yeah,
say sense, feel, or imagine that you're growing tree roots at the bottom of your feet. Okay, connecting to the center of the earth. But some people call it Gaia, which I do. Some
yeah,
people just want to call it the universe. Some people just want to call it the center of the earth. For myself, I will share. So those tree roots have a plug at the end of it, if you will. And I
mhm,
imagine it plugging right into Gaia's heart. I imagine this beautiful stone being sitting in the center of the earth. And I'm sending her, I call her her. You can call them whatever you like. But
yeah,
I'm sending her what no longer serves me,
yeah,
energetically, spiritually, you name it, no longer what serves me. And in exchange, I ask her to take what I no longer need and what can she give me to help ground me. So we have an exchange, if you will,
yeah,
because I know, I believe, and I visualize that what she takes that no longer serves us,
yeah,
she alchemizes it into energy that we can then utilize in the future. I
yes,
hope that makes sense.
yeah.
Nomek said 100%, and thank you all so much. Read me like a book. There you go, Carmen.
If you go to astro.com, or if you go to my website,
Mhm.
8 and 12, 8and 12houses.com, the number 8 and 12. You can email me through there. If you want to email me your chart, I can take a look and see if you've got any 8th and 12th house planets. So yeah,
I did put your website. I looked it up, and I think we're going to have you back on, anyways, if you're open to, because I want to talk to you all about symbols and
I would
signs,
love
because
to. Yeah.
I'm a real believer in when something shows up in my field in a short period. So I had this guest on from the UK, and he's written, one of Gavin's authors,
Yeah, yeah.
Tom Riley, and he's written the truth history about behind Oliver Cromwell.
Okay.
So Dell,
Neat.
my partner Dell's had him on, and we just,
Nice.
you just click with people,
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
people, right? So afterwards, I'm talking to him. I forget what we're talking about. And he goes, "Have you read the Da Vinci Code?" And I said, "Oh, heck yeah." And then, so we start talking. He said he was really into it about 10 years ago. He's always kind of wanted to do a bit of a history on the true Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
Ren le Chateau. So I
Yeah.
said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So right after I talked to him about that, no less than 12 hours later, 6 different people from all different facets, whether it's the
Wow.
internet, my property manager, people that had nothing to do with this, all brought up the Da Vinci Code. So I
Mhm.
believe we're meant to talk about, there's so much
Yes.
symbology and stuff in that too, right?
I love that. I love there's a book, it's about Washington DC, the DC zodiacs. There's
Oh,
the
okay.
whole we could spend a whole show on that. There's a book out there by, I think it's Overson is his name, but I had someone tell me about it and I started looking, but in Washington DC there are like over 28 hidden astrological zodiacs within the city, and major monuments that the founders of our country built.
What
They
about
built
your money
they built the whole
stuff that's
city
in your
based on
money?
an astrological map. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
based on the sign Virgo and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So, but that's a whole other thing. But I can talk about astrology in the Bible. There's tons of symbolism in there that's amazing. One of the cool things that comes up with the symbolism is Jesus, when the disciples ask him, will you return? He said, follow the man with the alabaster jar in the house where he dwells, which is the sign of Aquarius, the man with
Wow.
and and guess what's happening? We're in the age
The
of
age of Aquarius.
and he
Mm-hmm.
said that in the New Testament. And then in the book of Revelation, it talks about the 4 fixed signs, the face of the man, which is Aquarius, the face of a lion, which is its polar opposite sign, Leo, and the face of the bull, Taurus, and the face of the eagle is the ancient symbol of Scorpio.
Okay,
And
you know what? You're not going to realize this, you wouldn't know this, but I'm going to reveal this here. Those 2 ladies I work with, we channel quite a bit of information from Spirit, ET, you name it, just to get a little bit of
yeah,
insight, what's been going on in the world in the last couple of
yeah,
years, what to expect, if there's any way we could help in any way. That came up, a lot of stuff's been coming up in the revelations with all the, just what you brought up.
oh yeah,
And we weren't quite sure what that meant. I think you just hit the nail on the head. They may be listening. So, ladies, if you are, sometimes they do if they get a chance,
yeah,
but I'm going to draw their attention to this to have a
yeah,
listen
yeah,
because we were meant to hear that right now, obviously,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I've been drawn to revelations. I was raised Catholic. I say I was forced to go to church,
yeah,
forced to go to Catholic school. So I
yeah.
remember in 6th grade, I had to write a speech, and I was, believe it or not, painfully shy till I was about 14 or
Okay.
15.
Yeah,
Now I
yeah.
have not
Your
shut
Leo
up.
didn't come out yet.
I have not shut up. I'm just turned 57, August 15th. I
Belated
haven't shut up
birthday.
since.
I'm the 26th, so I just had mine Friday. So
Oh, well, happy
thank
birthday.
you. Thank you.
No, I have not shut up. But in 6th grade, we had to do a speech, and I have no idea why I chose Revelations
Wow.
and scared the living crap out of every kid in my class and my teacher. My dad helped me write it, actually. But at that time, Ronald Reagan was president.
Yes.
And he had 6 letters. I forget what his middle name is. I always do now. But his letters actually of his name were 666.
Oh
And
man.
again, this is from a childhood perspective
Yes.
because
Yes.
666 can be taken whatever way you want,
That's
depending
right.
on whether you look at gematria,
Yeah.
numerology. I mean, go
Yeah.
on and on, right?
Exactly. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love symbolism. One of
Mm-hmm.
the symbols that comes up a lot, is the star. In astrology, well, in ancient times, the Christians would put the star on their doors to ward off evil spirits, and then now
Yes.
law enforcement wears a star, but as a badge of protection.
We have to, you know what, if you're open to it, we have to do a show on this
Yeah.
because this is so powerful because people have no idea what is hidden right in front of their eyes in
Yes.
plain sight. Like I mentioned, money,
Yes.
all your commercials,
Yes.
logos. We could go on, and you've
Yes.
got so much insight from an astrological perspective. And the
Yeah.
way you've explained this really gives a lot of insight
Yeah.
and reasoning, possibly about why that was used in that
Yeah.
particular instance, the
Yeah.
symbol.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to talk about it.
So we've got Teflon Danny, because he mentioned, I don't know if you're still here, Danny, but if you are, he's a Pisces.
Ah,
And then he said, twins run in my family. And I think that's all he wrote, but he has a comment here. But
okay.
I'm going to ask you about it after, if you're able to take a look on that little bit of information, because I think it's an interesting comment, the next one. So I'll give you a minute to take a look. We didn't get much more info there, but he said
The
he's
twins running. So yeah, Pisces. Pisces, you would definitely resonate with the book because as a Pisces, you rule the 12th house. So anything about the 12th house is your main identity. So, you're very, most Pisces are compassionate. They're kind. I call Pisces and 12th house people fallen angels. And that's
That's
not,
why I wanted to ask you what Fallen Angels is
yes,
all about. Now I know
what,
why. Okay.
what fallen angels means. One of my favorite movies I used to love was called City of Angels with Nicolas
Oh, it's
Cage.
beautiful. I love
Yeah.
it. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what reminds me of 12th house people and
Mm-hmm.
Pisces sun people, Pisces energy people, is that they are so compassionate and kind. And it's like they don't feel like they're from Earth. So I have everyone that has 12th house sun or Pisces sun, they tell me,
My youngest son, who's severely autistic, is a Pisces.
and see,
And my other
they're,
one's my other one is a Cancer. I have two boys,
oh,
both water signs.
nice, very, very sensitive. And
Mm.
cancers are typically very close to their mother. They have a strong
Oh.
bond with their mother. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They rule the fourth house of the
Mm-hmm.
mother. And
Mm-hmm.
the moon is all about Cancer. Moon rules Cancer. So yeah, the mother figure is the moon in our chart. The sun represents the father figure in our chart. So you can kind of look at that. But yeah, your fallen angels means that, you weren't from here. You end up on Earth and it's like, what am I doing here? I'm not like anyone around me.
I love it.
They feel very different from their family and friends. They feel like they ask, am I adopted? Am I an alien? Like, why am I
Mm-hmm.
so different than everyone in school and my friends? And
Mm-hmm.
I call them angels. They're angels in human form that fell to this earth realm and they're here to learn and they chose to come here to help other people. But
Aw.
they didn't have anyone to tell them that when they're younger. They struggle a lot with loneliness and they get their feelings hurt so easily because they lack boundaries. They don't know how to protect themselves. So learning boundaries, I teach parents that have children with a lot of Pisces or 12th house planets to put up boundaries and to really teach them it's okay to say no. You don't have to sacrifice themselves for others. That's what Pisces do. They can get heartbroken easily. They're romantic. They believe in soulmates. They're artistic. They're creative. They're musicians. They're spiritual. They're naturally spiritual people. Pisces 12th house people are very spiritual. So I would say that Teflon
I'm listening to all this stuff and I'm thinking, no, no, no. But is it the autism? Maybe. I believe my son, I know we choose, and that's a whole different conversation about
yeah,
our parents, whomever, what. But my son, I believe, like right from, he had meningitis. I almost lost him at 2 weeks. And by 5 months, I knew there was something wrong. He was
yes,
diagnosed at 11 months. He's 24 now. But my
wow,
point is, when you said about learning how to say no,
yeah,
now the autism, like you said, with the boundaries, there's not the boundaries. But
yeah,
my son, when he's got his mind made up,
oh yeah,
and he'll tell you, he'll
oh yeah,
say, like, if he's gonna have a meltdown, I'm
yeah,
gonna hit you. I'm gonna
uh-huh,
hit you. And I can usually talk
yeah,
him down. But
sure,
my point is, when you were mentioning like the creativity and all this stuff, right? I don't see it, but is it maybe part of with what's going on developmentally versus
yes,
his soul? Because he is very intuitive and he's very powerful. I
yeah,
tried energy healing, not to change him, just
yes,
to help with the
yeah,
nonverbal anxiety.
yeah,
And he was blocking people from accessing his third eye at 3.5. Like I said, we've
wow.
never met somebody that powerful before.
He's
And numerous people.
he's there's a book. I have a friend whose daughter has autism and things like that, and they are special. They may not be able to communicate like we do, but
Mhm.
they communicate not in other ways. And
Mhm.
there's a book I read called The Children of Now. Have you ever read that book?
I've heard of it before.
It's really good, and it's
Mhm.
about children that that are disabled, that have special needs, different things, and how their souls are special, and they kind of came here for different purposes. And I really love the book, and it's like how these children are like enlightened, and they may not be able to even talk,
Mm-hmm.
but they know what's going on, and
Mm-hmm.
intuitively they can
Oh,
even parents experiences with them, it's like they know what's going on with their child. They don't have to communicate to be able to communicate with them.
well, he
So
can communicate. Now, there was something else I was going to say, and then I lost it. It was going to sound a bit dark. I forget what it was with him. Um, but he's very, very intuitive. Like once he said to me, he didn't talk really till he was about 7, and still it's very one-sided. But I
yeah.
remember he was about 11, probably about maybe 12 or 13, and he said, "Mommy," he said, "I have superpowers." And I said,
Oh,
"Oh, Justin, that's so awesome. What are your superpowers?" And the first one, he looked at me like, kind of like, duh. He goes, "I
yeah.
always know what the animals are thinking."
Oh
And I
my
said, both my boys communicate with animals.
God.
And
Wow.
then I said, "Okay, well, what's the second one?" And then a bigger look like, "Mom, seriously, you don't know?" Like the look. He goes, "My autism, of course, it's a superpower." And I thought, I'm
Oh,
so glad that he's able to perceive it that way.
well, that means you're
Mhm.
doing a wonderful job as a mother.
Well, I don't know
Mhm.
if it's that or
Yeah.
not, but he definitely is an individual.
He's got
And
confidence. Yeah.
hmm?
Got confidence. He does.
Yeah, he's very very strong-willed and very very persistent, and he needs to be handled a certain way. And even if
Yes.
he didn't have the autism, with what
Yeah.
you're saying about Pisces, I could understand that somebody very confrontational or harsh could
Yes.
bring out some very defensive behaviors or energy. I could see
Yes.
that because, like you said, they're so sensitive. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, they learn a lot of times. If they learn how people are, they'll learn how to he learned how to protect himself, you
Hmm.
know, and,
Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. Okay, so
yeah,
when we went through this, now this is the dark part. How my thing started with a lucid dream, like
yeah,
it happened like 16 years ago, like it happened 10 minutes ago. Something actually identified itself as demonic, gave me its name and the spelling of its name, and tried to get me to agree that I had a little business I was doing, and they were telling me, that little business does nothing. I can give you wealth, fame, what have you. And I can't say on the radio what I told it to do, but in no uncertain terms.
yeah, you had
Okay.
a bad lucid dream,
Yeah.
which that you felt like it was you were awake in the dream.
Oh, yeah, because all heck broke loose. And everything he told me, including the spelling, everything I found 10 years later. I could find
Wow,
nothing about it going to Catholic school, everything, even the spelling.
wow.
So all heck broke loose in that house. Now, where was I going with this as I'm getting out of oh, I know. So we started locally looking for help. And I always say I never ever would wish this on a blade of grass, but I don't look back
Yeah,
in anger because I would not be doing what I'm doing
yeah, yeah.
today or know the people that I do. But a woman came over, ended up realizing I knew her mom, and her mom had just recently passed away. Her mom was a secretary at the one side of the nursing agency I worked with out in the community. Anyways, the most incredible thing at the time was when she came over, her and my youngest son had a complete conversation with no words, and they were laughing and they were smiling, and he
Oh,
couldn't give her eye contact. But she explained it to me afterwards. She
oh,
said, "Oh my gosh, we had the most incredible conversation."
oh,
And he let her in too. So,
that is so sweet. Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah, that book, The Children of Now, you gotta it's older book, but I read it, when I was working with children. I used to work with autistic children.
okay.
I did an internship, it just seems so long ago, but when I was in college, that was one of my internships was at Judavine Center for Autism,
Oh,
and
wow.
I worked with, age 2 to age 18, and
Okay.
I did that, and I always loved kids and teens, so that was my big thing.
I love kids, and you know what it is too? I always say, with no disrespect, because he's highly intelligent in some areas, but he's really at 24. And we're not going to keep talking about my son, I promise. I'm not one of those
No,
parents out going on about my kid, but I think it's
no, hey,
interesting.
you want to talk about him, you go ahead. We're meant
Well,
to.
no, but I think it's important too because of the numbers and frequency and the projections 10 years from now, unless we change something like 1 in every second child, they're now talking. It's 1 in 38 to 42, depending
Wow.
on where you live geographically.
Wow.
35 years ago for our listeners, 35, 40 years ago, 1 in 10,000
Wow.
boys, because boys get it 3 times more than girls, but girls can be affected.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I'm losing my train of thought here as I'm talking. But I won't go on and on about it. But you know what? They do have, oh, that's where I was going to go with the dark stuff. That's what I was going to say to you. When we were looking for help, and I'm not trying to focus on the dark, but this is incredible when you were talking about the children of now. We were told that the ultimate prize this negative energy wanted was my son, my youngest son. He's very much, that's where I was going with the second comment. He's very much like, with no disrespect, that precocious age of a 5 to 7-year-old. So I need to do everything still for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could I leave him alone for a little bit? Yes. Can he dial a phone? Yes, he can do those type of things, but I don't, because how many people would leave a 5 to 7-year-old alone, right?
True. True.
Like, he's not going to take off. He's not going to run away. Like, he can entertain himself and what have you. But we were told anyways by this, like this dark energy, that he was the ultimate prize because of the innocent, pure soul that he came in with. And that Dell, my partner, and I were the things standing in the way.
Wow.
This was a lesson, though, you know, really, Carmen. It was about learning to stand on my own 2 feet, Dell's own 2 feet, embracing what we didn't go looking for this. It found us through no fault of our own. We still haven't figured out, maybe some soul had an attachment when it passed away and kind of followed home. I don't know, because there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
But the whole point is, and I think this is important about life. And like you say, you're talking about people, you know, the map to people's souls with a birth chart, that we don't grow. I was going to start to say this and we start to talk about something else. And I know somebody had just lost their mom recently. We were on a panel and it was very upsetting to them. And I didn't mean to upset them.
Okay.
But what I was going to say is, when we can grow, when we can really learn, when we can evolve our souls, I feel, is when we go through tragedy, we go through trauma, we go through pain. Because when things are status quo, don't we all say, God, I wish this could last forever? It's heaven on earth, right? You don't want anything to change.
Exactly. That's exactly what the 12th houses and 8th houses are about. It's about using, you know, these experiences that, you know, hurt us and made us vulnerable or to make us stronger. Because, you know, if our life was perfect and we never had
we'd never grow. We never grow.
And we would never seek a spiritual path, which is the reason that 12th house people specifically are here as fallen angels. They are here to find their oneness with God. The 12th house is about cosmic consciousness, dreams, intuitive abilities, serving others, and connecting with the higher power. So they have to have a spiritual path. And when they don't, that's when their life can get, it's like the universe does things to knock them back, right?
Oh my gosh, you were saying the same things. Like, it's literally, because I'm very visual, it's like Spirit gave me the vision of trying to paddle your canoe uphill. And then, you know, even if you just stop to breathe, right, it's like the universe or the current turns you back in the right direction. But it's these people that'll come for help, and you can tell that they've been fighting who they were meant to be, right? And like you said, the universe will just, it's like it puts obstacles and it makes life so difficult. But when you're on the right path, it becomes a little bit easier, doesn't it?
It flows a little easier. I had when I was 19, I had an astrologer do my chart for the first time. You know, I just done my own, and he said to me, "Your sun is in the 12th house. Anything you put before God will get taken away from you." That's what he told me.
Oh, and I'm my goodness.
Like, you know, to hear that at 19, you know, I was still pretty young. I'm like, wow. I mean, but it got my attention. And now that I'm older, I just turned 47. I totally know what he meant. But, you know, at that time, I really hadn't had that much happen.
I don't know. Like that would be something I'd bring into meditation. Are you comfortable sharing what your interpretation of that, what that meant for our listeners?
Yeah, what it meant was, you know, the old me, I would say, because I'm a different Carmen
Hmm.
than I used to be.
Yeah.
The old me had no boundaries. I
Okay.
trusted people so easily. I would give someone the shirt off my back, and I never
Ah.
really told people no. So I was a little bit, everyone used to tell me I was too nice. And so some things that happened was you know, got in love relationships in the past with the wrong type
Right.
of people that did not um,
Treat you like you deserve to be treated.
and kind of, you know, broke my heart, let's just say it.
Hmm.
And so through heartache and going through the pain of healing that and getting over that, that was my learning with having the sun and Venus in the 12th house, because the 12th house, Venus, is the planet of love and relationships. So it's all about believing in a soulmate. I used to believe that there's one special person. That I think it's a bunch of baloney now. There's not just one special person out there for you.
Hmm.
Learning and lessons with people, and what I went through, I was meant to go through so I could help other people now that I'm older. But at the time when you're going through it, you just think, why me? And you feel like a victim sometimes. Like, why is
Hmm.
this happening to me? Why am I being punished? You know, and you're not. It was my chart. Your chart shows what experiences in life and why you have to go through certain things. And it's to make us more resilient and to make us stronger so we can help other people. We're here to be with people, you know,
Hmm.
to help guide and help other people. But some people that are 12th house people, it's the house of addiction and
Hmm.
escapism, because
I've
some,
been around that my whole life, personally as well as
yeah,
professionally. I
because,
don't have the issue. I'm not saying that
yeah,
self-righteously, but
right,
I've had it around me. And another thing I constantly say is nobody wakes up one day and says, geez, I think I'll become an alcoholic or I'll become
yeah,
addicted to drugs. For
well,
whatever reason opens that doorway, it masks the pain
it's
people are going through, because you never find somebody that is addicted that is not going through trauma or pain. I have yet, anyways, to
true,
meet, find, or read about,
right.
research about. Hmm.
There's always a trauma
Hmm.
or an unhealed wound. There's a
I
wound.
like that better, because some people will look at somebody's life and say, that's not traumatic. Well, it was traumatic for that person to experience. It's an
Yes,
unhealed wound. I love those words.
it's their perception of what happened to them, and
Hmm.
and someone else might have a lot of worse, or you think worse stuff or bad stuff, but
It's not a contest, though, is it? That's what you got to
no,
tell people. It's not a contest.
no,
Hmm.
everybody deals with trauma and hurt and heartbreak and loss in a different way. Some
Hmm.
people are more sensitive, 12th house people, for instance. So if you think about it, when they drink, when they become alcoholic, they're trying to numb the pain. You know, when you talk to people that have attempted suicide or trying to take their life, they don't really want to die. They want the pain to go away. You know, and
Hmm.
they'll tell you this, and they'll say, "Hey, I just I want to feel better." So they try to do drugs and alcohol to numb themselves. It can be not just drugs and alcohol. The 12th house is about food addiction, exercise addiction, work addiction, you know,
Any kind of
anything that we
addiction.
do to detach
Excess.
ourselves from our emotions is
Hmm.
it can become an addiction. Anything we
Hmm.
do to cope it can become an unhealthy habit. You know, we get these
Hmm.
unhealthy habits that we do. That's a big 12th house thing, is these addictions, these escapist tendencies, because Neptune rules alcohol and addiction, and Neptune rules Pisces. Pisces rules the 12th house. So it's all about escaping from stress, escaping from the real world into our imagination, into where everything
Hmm.
is rose colored. Everything is you put people up on a pedestal when you have 12th house planets, and you see only the good in the world and only the good.
Hmm.
You're like a little angel that comes into a darker earth realm, right? That's why I call them fallen angels. And they realize,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, people are mean. Oh my gosh, they're hurting me.
Yeah.
And their feelings get hurt, and they're sensitive. They cry
Or yeah,
easily.
it's so hard to understand. Like, how could somebody
Yeah.
do something like that? Like, how could you be that mean? Like, how could you?
Yeah.
How could you? Like,
They
I,
don't know.
I know I've even thought, like, I'm not judging it, just trying
No.
to understand, like, where were you? Where were you coming from? Like, what were you thinking? Those are the thoughts that go through my head.
Yeah. How could a human being do something so terrible to some other human being? I mean,
Because this is a
we're
comment I
animals.
was going to bring up. I'm going to, because he had, when you brought
Yeah.
up about chameleons,
Yes.
Teflon Danny put serial killers are chameleons. So can we talk about that for a minute? Where have you ever run across or
Yeah.
studied a case
You know,
where
what's
both of them
interesting?
fall in?
Yeah, astrologically, I did read a paper about this, some research. The
Interesting.
research shows, you could probably Google and find it, but almost all of the serial killers that we know about,
Yeah.
almost all of them are mutable signs. They're Virgo, Gemini, Sag. They're mutable signs. So in astrology, we have there's 12 signs. They each have a certain element, which we talked about: fire, air, earth, or water. They each have a modality. They're either a cardinal sign, a fixed sign, or a mutable sign.
Okay, so what do those mean?
So the cardinal signs, they are the idea makers. They are the people that like to start things, but they don't really finish them. They say, okay, let's do this. I got this idea. Then they let other people go and finish it. They're like the leaders. So in astrology, we use how we come up with tropical astrology, Western astrology, why it's so accurate and it never changes is based on the seasons of the year. The cardinal signs start the seasons of the year. That's how to remember. So what sign starts the spring? Aries. It's the
Hmm.
first sign. Flowers start blooming, right? It's rainy and all these things start growing. Aries is a cardinal sign. They're polar opposite. Your polar opposite sign always is the same modality, always in the sky. So
Okay.
Aries polar opposite is Libra in the sky. They always oppose each other as star constellations if you're looking at the sky.
Okay.
Libra is also a cardinal sign. It
Mhm.
starts the fall, right?
Okay. What about summer?
Summer is Cancer
That's
because
what I thought.
summer, and guess what their polar opposite is? Capricorn, which is winter.
Okay.
Because Capricorns are born December, Jan, right?
Right.
Cancers are born June, July. Libras are end of September to end of October, right? Mid October. And then, which one did I miss? I got
Spring.
Aries. Yeah, Aries is the end of March to April. So the cardinal
Summer, spring,
signs rule
winter.
the seasons of the year.
Okay.
It's an easy way to remember. And they're all cardinal signs. The fixed signs are the stubborn ones. They're strong-willed. They're very
Leo?
Yes, Leo's fixed.
Yeah, I figured.
So Leo and Aquarius, which are polar opposites in
Mhm.
the sky, they're both fixed, and they're the ones in the book of Revelation. And then Taurus and Scorpio are the other two fixed signs, and they both oppose each other. So they like to control things. They don't like change. They like to be the one that makes change. They want to be the one in control. And fixed signs, they're hard to change their mind once they make it up. I mean, you can reason with,
Unless you're aware of it and you're
yeah,
open, because I have
yeah,
evolved. Not that I was that steadfast,
sure,
but I
sure,
have learned with experience and age. I'm nowhere near the person I was
yeah,
10, 15 years
yeah,
ago. I have
yeah,
evolved and changed through experiences, through reading, through learning, through interacting with other people. And I always say, just because maybe I haven't heard of it or seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I've
true,
changed my mind about a lot of things too.
true. And you got to look at everything like just the sun sign. We're talking
I
about the
agree.
fixed, but you may have a mutable rising sign. So we'll go to mutable.
Okay.
Mutable are they're changeable.
Oh, interesting that he said this
Well,
then, Danny, if you're listening.
so guess who the mutable signs are? Gemini, and their polar opposite Sagittarius, Virgo,
Ah,
and Pisces. Okay.
ooh, okay.
And so I don't know what it is, but I did read about just sun signs of serial killers only. We weren't looking at other, I think
Right.
there's more to it. There's more to the chart than just your sun. But traditionally, just looking at the sun sign, the research has shown there's a ton of Virgos, Geminis, Sages, and
Now,
Pisces.
did they have a hypothesis about why they were seeing this at all? Did they go further with this research that you're aware of, or
They're just kind of looking at the modality was which,
similarities, or like you said,
yeah.
modalities? What's the most prevalent?
Yeah, and it just happened that the real people the FBI has had that, they have been a mutable sun sign. But
Wow.
I don't, I'm not expert in that, but I did
Mhm.
read a research paper about it that Teflon's talking about. So it is interesting. I think mutable signs, I'm a Virgo, but I have a lot of Taurus and Aries, so I'm fixed in cardinal. So I don't feel like a mutable sign, but I've met people that are they can morph and change. Most of them are Gemini and Sag, and Pisces can
My
be,
partner just said to one of his friends, I was surprised he admitted it. He said, yeah, you never know what doll you're going to get. There's two of them. You might get this one or you might get the other one. You just never know. And it's true. Mm-hmm.
and when you look at, if you have
Excuse me.
a mutable rising sign, I notice like Pisces, Gemini rising, especially Gemini rising people, they are so adaptable, and they can just become and pretend and be, they take on the traits of people they're around.
They're
Then they,
like water. They fit the
yes,
shape of whatever vessel they're poured into.
yes, yes. And they're likable, they're friendly, and they're
Mm-hmm.
social. So people, they're charming.
Mm-hmm.
That charm, that charisma.
Like I said, they can sell ice to Eskimos, and they
Yes.
can. Mm-hmm.
Gemini risings, anytime I really click with someone and we start talking, and it's just like they know you so well, they got a Gemini rising, because they know everyone well. They can make everyone feel like they know them well.
We moved in where we are. We left at that house, lost everything. I don't miss it. I'm not sorry we left it.
Yeah.
We've got incredible neighbors here, but nobody spoke until we moved in. And
Wow.
that's because of Dell. Like, not that I'm not friendly. He
Yeah.
is just like that. It doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah.
He'll be able to talk. And he was I remember he told me, because I had very interesting and intriguing conversations with him. Like, he has admitted that, like, I've often said to him some of the experiences he shared, and he remembers like being in the Jolly Jumper. Well, I was about 2 years, because he doesn't have his own smaller children. He has my kids as stepkids. I said, Dell, you had to be a baby to be in a Jolly Jumper. Like, how do you remember that?
Yeah.
Or certain things he was doing as like a 3.5, 4-year-old. He lived in Toronto at the time, driving in this huge circle in suburban Toronto on his bicycle. He could tell time. I said, your mother let you go by yourself? Like, oh yeah, it was like no big deal. Anyways, he says everybody in the neighborhood knew who he was, because he just would go and introduce himself and go talk. Like, this is a child, like a little kid. And I think he came in as an adult.
Yeah.
He's shared with me. I don't know if he's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
An old soul.
Well, I don't know if he shared on air, so I won't say it, but he's actually said to me over the years what he believes his past life was. And it would have been something that if he died, he would have died very suddenly. And it's almost like he popped right back into another body to finish, but still had that adult psyche in a small child. That's what it feels like to me too.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So there you go. You know what I was thinking too, and I'm so grateful I had you on. I'm so grateful for all my guests, but this is the first time I'm actually understanding astrology. Like, it's so intriguing. But as you were explaining this, I thought, holy cow, they really didn't send us without a book, because there's astrology, the Akashic records, there's channeling, there's intuitive ability. I mean, I could go on and on. It's just, I think, whatever people are drawn to and willing to open it and take a look at the answers.
Well, I will. It's interesting you brought up the Akashic records. I've been trained in that level 1 and 2, but when I do someone's chart, I actually do the prayer, the Akashic Records prayer. And I found that before I even look at their chart, what's in the record matches the chart. Always.
And I have found I've been doing it forever. I've been so called to the Akashic Records forever. And the teacher, she's actually running the Akashic Records again, guys. So if you're interested, Amy Robeson, Sacred Awakenings. And I've taken both levels with her. Love her. She uses crystalline energy to open the records. Takes about 10 seconds, not 10 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. But after I took both courses, I realized, holy crap, I think I've been accessing the records my whole life anyways. It just didn't know.
When you talk like that, you don't need, sometimes I'll be saying something, or something like, how did you know that? Or someone will say, I was just going to hit call. Why did you call me? Someone will be on my mind. I'll call them. They're like, are you psychic? I'm like, I'm just intuitive. I don't know. I was drawn to call you. I called you. So I think we live in a
I think we all have these abilities. I'll give a shout out to Joe Montaldo in New Orleans, Louisiana, who owns a network and broadcasts this out of his home. Now, we used to have a paranormal panel, and he's argued with me that no, not everybody has these gifts. But
Sure.
I believe they do, because if you look, same as animals, like
Yeah.
as a
Love
light
animals.
worker for the term, because of the darker experiences I've been through, actually worked with Amy about this to find out, like, why are people with really dark experiences coming to me? She said sometimes there's people in the light worker field that have to bring light to that
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
So
You could be an
he
eighth
kept,
house too. You could have a lot of eighth house or Scorpio. I need to look at your chart. I'll look
okay,
at your
I'm
chart.
so interested. Well, what I was going to say though is now I keep losing my train of thought as I'm talking, because there's so much going through my mind, so many things I want to
Yeah.
ask you. So yeah, with, I think it was, I'll keep talking, it'll come back to me, I know it will. If
Yeah.
you, because you said you need to look at my chart, I was talking about the paranormal. Oh, that's what it is, I knew it would come back. So Joe argues with me that people don't have these abilities, that they're only special, and if everybody had them, military would want them, everybody would want them, they'd be using them. But when you look at, that's where I was going with this, if I'm working with someone that may be experiencing activity,
Yeah.
first thing I will ask them, do you have any pets? Yes.
Yeah.
What are your pets doing? When you experience stuff, obviously, there's way more to it. But the second thing I always ask is, do you have any children?
Yes.
If you do, how old are they?
Yes.
Because the younger they are, I have yet to see, almost most children can see spirit as very, very, very small children. I think we just forget it, or throw it away, if you will, as we become older and start believing in other things.
I do believe that children are open and innocent. And I think
Mhm.
we all are so open and innocent. And then, the world teaches us to be,
Happens.
we have to live in a material world. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of why the 12th house is hard, because it's a spiritual world. It's a spiritual house. So having these unexplained experiences, but to us, it's part of who we are. Dreams, these intuitions is who we are, but we're living in a material world where most people, so that's what makes it lonely. That's why people want to escape and numb themselves, because they don't feel that other people understand them until they start meeting other spiritual people that are like them, and then they find their friends and their
They
passion.
find their soul family here on earth,
Yeah.
almost, right?
I believe that we're meant to go through that. I remember I would be sitting in a group, and I had a lot of friends in college, but I always felt like I was outside looking in. I
Mhm.
never felt like I belonged here. Like, it's just a very strange feeling, and it's hard to write about it and it's hard to talk and make it, but that's the only way I know how to explain it. And when I write about it, all these 12th house people have called me that have read the book or wrote me and said they cried, and that what I'm writing about, they have lived.
Because then you've experienced it, you know it. You don't
Yeah,
even need a lot of words, just that phrase,
no,
I felt like I never belonged, or
yeah,
like
yeah,
you said, kids asking, and I've run into people like that. Was
mhm,
I adopted? Like,
yeah,
I just don't feel like I belong here, or whatever it
yeah,
is. But if you've experienced it, you really, sorry, I was reading the comment. I thought there was a new comment there. Um, you know what it means, but to try and explain it to somebody, just kind of like how we were talking about
yeah,
grieving. If you've never gone through the grieving process of losing somebody very, very close to you,
yeah,
it's very difficult. Same thing as what you're sharing right now, right?
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. I had a friend, well, a friend of my husband's, is a long time ago, but I had looked at his chart one day, and he had a lot of eighth house planets, like a stellium, and I just thought, wow, this guy. And I said, have you ever lost anyone close to you? And he said no. And I knew he's meant to. And
Mm-hmm.
and so there's certain things in astrologer, I don't say to people.
I was just going to say, you
Yeah,
probably didn't tell them though,
no,
did you? Right.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
careful what I say. I just, did ask him the question. I said, "Okay, interesting." So about 3 years after that, he called me. I'll never forget. He called me, and he was upset. His wife had a aneurysm, and she died.
Oh.
She died unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew he's in his chart, because
Mm-hmm.
it's meant to. I knew when I know what the eighth house means. It's just something that it's going to happen eventually. There's
If
some
it hasn't, it's going to.
Yeah, there's something. And he went through this big thing, and I ended up helping him, and it was just,
Aw.
I went to the funeral, and I spoke, and I tried to help him and his son, but it's a long story. But I also, when I worked with kids, I had a long time ago, shoot, it was when I was in my 20s. I had a parent a friend of mine had a friend whose son was struggling, and he was maybe 7 or 8, and he was obsessed with great tombstones and cemeteries.
Mm-hmm.
And he would draw tombstones and cemeteries, and he would tell her that he was afraid of the dark and all this stuff. And so I went and met this kid, and I did his chart.
And
He
you
had
knew. You knew before you did the chart.
he had a stellium in the 8th house,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a little talk with him, and so I gave her some tips and things, to do to teach him that to ground himself and to protect his energy and things, because kids are very open. I remember
Oh, yeah.
when my daughter, and this is kind of a funny story. I mean, I do believe that, the Catholic Church believes in this, and the priest will come to your house because there is something to it. I mean, if you're not raised Catholic, a lot of people don't understand, that about ghosts and hauntings, and things like that. I'm open-minded, but my daughter, when she was little, my husband was deployed. He was in the Air Force for a long time.
Oh, okay.
He's retired now, but we were alone for about 6 months, and
Wow.
he was 3. And I had a monitor where I could hear her, and she was crying. And I remember going over, and she was like 2.5, 3, almost 3. She said, "Mama, there's a bad man in my room."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh no, we're not going to do this," So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I said what he looked like, and she definitely saw something to be
Mm-hmm.
that little and to be able to say. I said, "Well, how do you know he was bad?" And she said, "He had a mean face."
Mm-hmm.
That's what she
Mm-hmm.
And so I did the Lord's Prayer. I put a cross above her door. I blessed the room, and I said, "You will not." I did my prayers and my things and ever since then, she never had another issue. So
Sometimes, most of the time, it does work. With us,
yeah,
nothing seemed to work. So this is where I had to go on the journey with energy to understand that like attracts like on this planet. So
yeah,
if you've got a high vibrational energy, you're no longer a match for something lower vibrationally. So
yeah,
even though it might have been there and everything wasn't resolved, all the physical attacks, all the other things all stopped
wow,
because we understood. Now, was there, it's a whole different
oh yeah,
conversation, and the fact that,
yeah,
I think that this runs in families, especially those that are like your daughter
yeah,
experiencing so wide open. um I always, if parents come to me to
yeah,
talk about their children, is if they say there's an imaginary friend, and I talk about it lots on the show too, is ask your child, just like you did. You handled that so beautifully. Like, there was none of, "Oh honey, you just had a bad dream," or you went, "Oh no, 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 no,
yeah,
that's not happening." But
yeah,
you knew and you believed her. And this isn't judgment against parents, because if you've
yeah,
never experienced that kind of thing,
yeah,
you may not realize that it's happening. So I always say to parents, ask a lot of questions
yeah,
about if there's an imaginary friend, right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think children are very open, and I
Because they're
feel
so pure.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how Pisces and 12th house people feel, is like it's kind of like they're naive. They see people with rose-colored glasses and they get let down. And so they struggle. A lot of them can struggle with depression and sadness and loneliness. And they are drawn to the monastery. They're drawn to be away from society and stress because they are so sensitive. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not a bad thing. It's just part of having planets in the 12th house. Of course, they have planets in other houses too that do play an impact in our life, but I specifically have done a lot of research on those 2 houses. And
I have a question for you, actually. What I was thinking about, though, have you run into people, I'm sure you have, where the majority of their houses are within the 12th and 8th sign? Like, are those,
oh
like, what kind
yes,
of individual would that be? Because I can't even imagine
oh wow,
the issues that would present.
yeah, a lot of people in my Facebook astrology groups have what we call that a stellium. When
Okay.
when there's more than 3 planets in one house,
Yeah.
we call that a stellium. And I've seen people that have had like 6 planets in one
That's
house.
what I was thinking. Like, I'm going, like, there's got to be people
Oh,
like
they're
that.
special. They're special. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I will say that they struggle. They struggle because they are very psychic and intuitive and sensitive, and sometimes they go down the victim route. That's the downside of the 12th house, is feeling like a victim. You have to come out of the victim and realize you're not a victim, you're a survivor, and you actually went through those hard experiences, whatever they were. And it could have been different for everyone, but you went through that loss of a parent, feeling like you didn't have a connection with the mom or your dad. You know, those are similar experiences for 12th house people, because they always feel like they're not from here. So their real parent is God, the creator.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're in a material world where we're not taught that. We're taught to go to school, get a job, work, pay your bills, right? You eat, sleep, you know, nobody teach unless you're raised to learn these things. You're born with it. I believe you're born with, some people are born this way. And I think
Yep.
we're all born this way when we're little, but I think some people are meant to keep it.
Yes, that's what I've been saying. Just like some people are natural born leaders or athletes or mathematicians, musicians, some people are meant to maintain it their whole lives. But then I also add, if you're feeling drawn to it, to learn more about it, doesn't mean that you can't open that doorway again, especially if it was open as a child.
And I think sometimes with astrology, the thing I try to do is teach people to get rid of the stigma of it, because astrology to me is not evil. It's in the Bible.
Oh, I don't think it's evil at all.
It's all I mean, Jesus talks about it. I mean, so I really have spent my life trying to open people's minds up that astrology is not evil. It's a self-awareness tool that can be used to help you understand yourself and others better. It's a psychological tool. Just like four lenses or any of these personality tools that you take in businesses and companies to get to know each other and how you are at work. Astrology is the same thing. It's exactly the same. It's energy, it's personality, it's all those things. Like, and the collective unconscious is what, you know, the psychologist Carl Jung talked about. We all are connected.
We are.
Our mind, our mentally, our consciousness, you know, when we dream, we're in our subconscious, when we meditate, but we all are connected. And that's why these things, these meaningful coincidences is what he talked about as a psychologist. Things happen, like you said, these certain topics will come up, or you were just thinking about something, somebody told you about that, and the animal, or you dreamed about an animal and someone starts talking to you about that animal. That's the collective unconscious, you know, where we all are one. There's a oneness that we have with animals, with people.
Do you know what was a good example of that I read about recently? And it was a research study. There was a particular brand of monkeys on an island isolated from wherever, and they were being studied.
Okay.
And the animals on that island started learning how to use a specific item in nature, I forget what it was, as a tool. And it was very, very, very effective. Well, I guess within a couple of years, now none of the monkeys had left the island, traveled or migrated. Halfway across the world, another breed of monkey, but within the same genealogical line, if you will, was all of a sudden starting to use this really rare particular item as a tool that they'd never used before. Nobody taught them this. It was like they were able to assure, I don't know, maybe if these particular monkeys, because it was a while ago when I read this, they might have been in a facility even, but there was a way to ascertain that nobody had shown them this. So how were they mimicking what the monkeys were doing halfway across the world? And then they start getting into quantum physics and the collective consciousness, right? That's the only thing it could be. There's no other way to explain it. Like that they were doing, and they were using it exactly the same way it was. I forget, I'll have to look up the article, but it was a very rare item that the ape family had never been known to use as a tool, and they were doing it.
It's really interesting. I do believe in energy, definitely. Everything's energy, and that's, you know, the full moon, you know, the moon, for instance, affects our emotional future. So the moon in our chart, our moon sign is how we are emotionally. Our sun sign is our main identity and personality. So the moon, when it's full, you know, it affects the whole world. It affects us because our body is made mostly of water. So it affects the tides of the ocean. The full moon, most people, they get a little bit more irritable. They feel more emotional. They have trouble sleeping. There's more accidents. There's more people at the police station. And when I worked with runaway teens, I remember whenever I would joke, they joke, Carmen, is it a full moon? Because we were always so busy during the full moon weekend, because more teenagers would run away to the police station, and then we would go and get them. And I'm always like, yes, because it affects us. it's all connected. And the moon is one thing to really that you can see
We
practically.
never had to, because I work nights all the time. I'd work days
Yeah,
or night shift, and if it's 12
yeah,
hours, we'd always know when it was full moon. And
oh,
usually the about 3 days before and about 3 to 4 days
yeah,
after,
definitely.
always. And somebody would say it's got to be a full moon, and then somebody had seen the Weather Channel or something. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
the
full moon,
medical
because
people know.
you
Yeah,
know.
the medical people know, and the police officers and sheriffs and cops, they'll tell you.
Or
They get,
you in your line of work, if we're working with people and we're working with people that need help,
yeah,
people are going to need more help in that time period,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Hmm.
Because if people normally in their life are repressing emotions, and
Hmm.
they're not feeling, they're not letting themselves feel things. The full moon brings things up to
Hmm.
consciousness, and it bubbles up. And and especially if they've been avoiding feeling,
Hmm.
it's okay to feel. I just kind of did a video on this the other day that it's okay. You don't always have to be strong and be
Hmm.
and have it all and be tough and hide. It's okay to be vulnerable. And you know what? It's okay to cry
Hmm.
because that's healing. It's not okay not to feel. That's not
Hmm.
healthy. We need to allow ourselves to feel. So during a full moon, I may be watching a movie or listen to a song in the car, and I may start crying. I just let it roll,
Hmm.
like let the tears come.
I'm
You
not good with that. I'm getting better, but I'm not good with that. And I should be, because I say the same thing to people that I work with.
Yeah,
I think it came with being, we absorb so much. And it's not that I'm pointing the finger of blame, but we absorb so much as children from the minute even before we're
I know.
born
Yeah,
until about 7 years of age, right? Our brains are like sponges. So we just
yes,
absorb so much stuff that I think that
yeah,
sort of remains below the surface.
yeah,
And you don't understand why, maybe. Like, it's not easy to cry.
yeah. Well, you get I kind of know for myself, and a lot of 12th house people and 8th house people and
Got
people.
told you're too sensitive, because that's what I got told my
Yeah,
whole
we
life.
were told
Hmm.
we're too sensitive. So what we do is we develop a shell. We
Hmm.
try to protect ourselves and
Yep.
be strong. And we've learned that people could hurt us, and so
Hmm.
we anticipate what people are going to do. So we become private and secretive, and we hide, and we seem to put on a smile on our face, but
Yep.
we don't always show people. And I know it took me years to develop. I didn't like it at first when I realized that I felt different. Like I felt like I had a thicker skin, and I thought like, oh, I don't cry as easily. I'm not as sensitive as I used to be. Um,
Hmm.
Part of that I believe is our chart. Part of
Hmm.
that is our North Node, and I'm meant to learn to be a Scorpio. That's my North Node. And
Okay, so what is a North Node, though? Can you tell us quickly what
yeah,
that is? Or
so in your
I'm
chart,
loving this so much. I'm so excited
yes,
that I
yes,
had you, and I can't wait to have you back on again. We
yes,
talk
thank
about
you.
symbology and all kinds of stuff. Throw it in there. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in the chart, the North Node and South Node, it looks like little horseshoes or little
That's what
headphones.
you said, headphones, right? And then the other one looks like horseshoes. Is it
Yeah,
upside down? Okay.
yeah, like an upside down with the South Node is your soul, is your past lives. It's what you've already mastered.
Ooh,
And so
okay.
astrologers will look and see, okay, what sign is it in? What house is it in? And we can analyze that. When you look at the North Node, that's your soul mission this lifetime. So we're all living in our South Node. That's what our soul has mastered. So I've mastered Taurus traits. I don't like change. I like comfort. I like stability. I love to eat. I love food. I love, all art and being cozy and all that. And
Hmm.
my dog. So this life,
Yes, dogs.
I've had to experience loss and
Hmm.
in death of loved ones and people close to me, and also working in as a social worker, hearing people's stories of their problems, and all of that is very Scorpio. So as I've gotten older, and my 12th house and everything, I started feeling the pull towards my North Node in Scorpio, and it was painful because your North Node you don't like. You're not going to feel comfortable.
Mm-mm.
Ooh, I don't like this because it's new and it's unknown. But you're meant to master your North Node, and we have our whole life to do it. By the time I do charts for people that are 62, they're in their node. So you get
Okay.
there naturally. The universe leads you through your life experiences to your North Node, or you can try to you can go kicking and screaming, so to speak, where you get kind of knocked down and you got to get back up to get where you need, or you can learn what your North Node is at a young age, and you can try to master being a Scorpio. And I remember I had something really bad. There was, just a lot of things happen, and I was really just hurt, and I needed to heal some stuff, right? About people. Usually, people are our greatest lesson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was running. I remember I had my headphones on. I was running, and I was listening to this, and I'm like, why is this happening to me? Right? You start thinking these things, and I just heard this in my head. It's like, how else will I make you a Scorpio? Yeah, and I started laughing and crying, the tears are going down my face, and I just laughed so hard. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, dang it, you're right. How else will I ever be a Scorpio if I don't have someone hurt me? If I don't have someone betray me?
Well, that's just right. That Stella and I said this on a show. How can you know truth if you haven't been lied to? How can you know hurt without pain? How
Yes.
can you know heat, being burnt, if you've not been cold? Like, you have to know, right?
Yes. And, I realized those experiences I had now, I wouldn't change them for anything, because they've made me who I am today.
Kind
But
of where we started off, like when I
yeah,
was saying, like, you embrace.
yeah,
I always say embrace it all, because it makes it
yeah,
you who you are. But you know what I was going to say about that? We kind of touched this sort of off and on throughout the show. It's about perception, because I do believe we always have a choice. And I have been guilty myself of saying, well, I didn't have a choice. Yes, we do have a choice. It's whether or not sometimes we don't want to make either A or B. But it's the same thing about these experiences. And I find sometimes with pain, it's time, it's experience,
yeah,
it's encountering different people,
yeah,
healing. And when we look back, we have the choice to look at what we went through.
yeah,
What did we gain from it? What did we learn from it? Even
yeah.
if it's just to never experience it again, right? But
True.
a lot of people get stuck right in the
Yes.
pain.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because you get trapped, you're in the past. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what my greatest learning is. I'm so connected to the past and the
Mm-hmm.
past people and things and how things used to be. And Scorpio is all about change, rebirth, and death and
Mm-hmm.
transformation. So my whole identity is really emotionally, I've changed, and I've become a little bit of a thicker skin. I still have the softy in me. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to wear my heart on my sleeve, is what
Yeah.
my parents used to tell me, that
Aw.
I was, and I know looking back, I was way too sensitive. I had no boundaries to protect myself and my energy and my emotions.
Yeah, but
So
Earth is so difficult to come here, right? It's like a school. You and when you channel other entities and things
yeah,
like that. First, they always say, man is still a young
yeah,
being population, but Earth, I think, is one of the most difficult places to incarnate on. You come in with spiritual amnesia, don't remember anything from a past life.
yeah,
You come in
yeah.
with these dense, heavy, clumsy, fragile bodies.
Hmm.
And it's so funny. I was watching it. Somebody had a bunch of videos up of newborns coming in, and I never get tired of watching a baby be born. But
Yeah,
it's so fascinating now to look at it from this perspective, not working it anymore,
yeah.
and seeing those little faces. And then you hear people that will tell you they can remember when they were born and what they were thinking and what they were experiencing. You can almost see it in these little ones' faces. Like, oh my God, what did I do? Oh, I made a mistake.
It makes me laugh. I saw a meme like that. It was like a baby, and it said like some like eighth, 12th house, or it was like, what the heck am I doing here? Like
Yeah.
what did I do? And it's like, has their hand, a little infant, just
Oh,
oh no, Earth again, no, it's just like,
I
but
want to know more. I'm serious about the eighth house, the 12th house. I want to know all this stuff now, because, like I said, it
yeah,
always went over my head,
yeah,
always. And it's not that I'm unintelligent. It's
yeah,
just, I think the most resonating thing that you said at the beginning of the show, the moment and second that you're born, it's like a snapshot is taken of the constellations and the sky.
yeah. Put
It's like your map, if you
your map,
will. It's like
yeah,
your map.
like a picture, and you know, fallen angels.
Where can they buy it, Carmen? Like, where can they get all your books, your YouTube channel, everything? Because we're almost out of time. That's why I said I'd love to have you back on.
Okay, so I got a YouTube channel. It's my name, Carmen
I
Turner-Shott.
just subscribed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Carmen Turner-Shott. And then I have a website. I'm getting ready to get a new website. It's in the works. So my old website will connect to it. It'll be my
Sure.
name, carmenturnershott.com.
Yeah, easier to find, yeah.
Yeah. But it's 8, the number 8, and 12houses.com. I'm on Facebook under Carmen Turner-Shott author. I'm on Instagram as Carmen Turner-Shott.
I tried to find you on Instagram. I couldn't find you because I was going to tag you because I post everywhere for the show.
I saw you on Facebook. I couldn't find you on Instagram either, but I'm Carmen Turner-Shott and then Carmen Turner-Shott author. And then also,
okay.
I have a Facebook page called Deep Soul Divers Astrology. That's
I gotta check that out.
Page. And then I have the 8th house Deep Soul Divers Astrology group, the 12th house, the 12th Astrological Astrology group. You can join on Facebook and join. I have about
I can't wait.
15,000 people from all over the world are in the group.
I love it.
And they share their charts. They ask questions about their charts, and people help each other. I try to make it a support group atmosphere. I've had to ban and block people, unfortunately, as an admin, because I try to keep it a support group. I don't want anyone to be attacked or feel bad for sharing.
I hear you. And it's private, I bet, too, because I have 2 groups on Facebook.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, as being an admin. So I don't add everyone. I want them to answer the questions. I kind of screen. So I got about 300 pending things that some people I don't add if they don't answer the questions or they look like it's a fake profile.
I don't either. Yep.
And then they might write me and say, "Hey, I've been trying to join your group." Well, then I'll add you because I'll know you're legit. But you can find me. I'm on Twitter, which is new for me, under Astro Awareness and Soul Divers Astrology. I'm on Twitter, so I'm getting out there. But Facebook's the best way to get me. I'm probably use Facebook more than anything.
So where do they buy your books? Where can they buy them?
All my books are on Amazon. They're on Barnes and Noble, Books of Maine, but Amazon's the way to go. And it's The Mysteries of the 12th Astrological House, Fallen Angels is my newest book. And I also have another new book out called Sun Signs, Houses, and Healing.
I saw that. Okay.
Build resilience, and transform your life through astrology. That is a beginner's book for anyone that doesn't know astrology. So if you're wanting to learn the basics,
I am.
Recommend get that. And it'll go, my whole intro is about all of this, the symbols, how you put a chart together, what it all means. And then you can look up each sun sign chapter, read about yourself, read about your friends and family. And it's just a beginner's guide. And then next year, I have 2 more books coming out. One about the moon through the houses, the moon signs, and then Phoenixes and Angels, Mastering the 8th and 12th houses. It's my one coming out soon. I'm excited about it.
You and I are going to become friends, I can tell, because you got all these books we got to talk about for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this talk with you. I can't wait to have you back on again.
Thank you.
Guys, go out, join your groups, go get her books, because I don't know about anybody listening here, but this is the most explainable I have ever understood astrology. And like I said, I'm not unintelligent. It just people get so used to it and they start throwing all the terminology and just it's like
I don't want to lose people. I want people to be drawn to it and to know that you can learn it. Go to astro.com, find out your time of birth, place, year, date. You can do a free chart. You can see, you'll have a wheel and you'll see the 12 houses like I talked about. You'll see the symbols. You can Google, you can get any basic astrology site will tell you what everything means. You can order your own reports. And any astrologer can help you as well. I'm not doing.
I'm running out of battery, so I had to plug in quickly, but I can't hear, so you're going to have to be looking up my nose almost. I have no idea why with the newer iPhone, but it does not work well with StreamYard. So I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. But
I can just barely hear you, but we're almost out of time. Everybody, I want to thank again, Carmen. I can't wait to have her back. Also, I will be back next Monday, same time, same space. Be sure to get the book. I have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and the Angel Rocker Tribe for all the things we're talking about, and many more esoteric spirituality, how to access your gift type things. If you want to get a hold of me to book a reading, mentoring, you got questions, so shows, suggestion, healing work, anything like that, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock, and I will be back next Monday. I promised you guys, unless something changes, we have an open show, no guests. So you guys wanted to talk more. I think somebody brought up giants at the end of the last one a few weeks ago. So I told you Labor Day here in North America. So looks like we're going to have a Q&A. So if you've got experiences or you want to talk about something, please feel free to get a hold of me and let me know. So I want to thank you all again. And Carmen, you're amazing. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Look
Thank
forward to
you.
having you again.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. Don't forget to check out our archives anywhere where podcasts and talk radio are carried. Talk to you later. See you next Monday. Much love and light.